All right, so I think it's 5 past. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the webinar for this week or this month, I think. We try and do these semi-regularly to kind of, again, seek feedback from our clients about how they're using the platform, let people know about potential upcoming changes, seek feedback on how we're going to be changing the registry, and then also talk through some recent changes that people may not be aware of to bring everybody up to speed. The idea of these webinars is really around seeking user feedback and user engagement in the platform. One of our biggest challenges here at Aristotle Metadata is making sure that everybody who's using the platform is heard equally, and making sure that the changes that we're making to the platform are really of benefit to everybody. What the Aristotle Metadata Registry is designed to do is it's designed to be a common platform across government and the private sector here in Australia and also internationally now, to make sure that people who are managing data are really coming from a common viewpoint. So we're kind of in a sticky position where we make sure that we're really, really engaging with everybody to make sure the changes are working for everybody, to make sure that that common platform is really working for our entire client base, and then also for your own stakeholders as well. With regards to today's presentation, we've got a couple of really interesting ones coming up. So we're going to be looking at probably some small changes, but also some changes that can really irritate people as well. So we're looking at how we're going to be changing the icons in an upcoming release and why we're changing the icons. Looking at a really cool new data visualization tool or a metadata visualization tool in the registry for showing users, what's in your registry. We're going to be looking at some changes we're making to the Excel importer as well. So how exactly are we changing the importer to kind of link to existing content? And then we're going to look through some recent changes we've made within the platform, and then do a little bit of Q&A and probably kind of have a look at those custom features that Alex was talking a little bit about there as well. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is again, it's kind of minor, but it's kind of important. It's a change that we're looking at going from what we've called Font Awesome, or what is called Font Awesome 4, to a new version called Font Awesome 5. So for people who are unfamiliar, Font Awesome is a really great icon font that's used across a lot of web applications, and it's designed again to build consistency across the web ecosphere to make sure that people are using similar icons no matter how they're presenting information in a web application. We've been on Font Awesome 4 for quite a while. It's really great. It's really useful. But they did an update recently that changed the icons ever so slightly, but in a way that might be confusing for users. And it's a bit of a small change. The reason why we're doing it is, as you can see with their rocket ship example here, is they've actually introduced a number of different layers to it so that we can have different icons presenting different things. So similar to the notification icons with a bell that's empty or filled in to kind of notify people in Aristotle if they've got new notifications or not, they've added a lot of new styling and the ability to have dual colored icons as well, which is really useful for presenting information. To give you an understanding of why we're making this change, it's really around the breadth of more information that we can show across the platform. It's really designed to bring in new ways that we can visually describe stuff. But the important thing is when we're not changing the meaning of any of the existing icons. So we're really sticking to the ones that we've used for, the dashboard and for work groups and for registration authorities. We're really sticking to the same icons here with the same meaning within the registry, and we're not taking away the text. So there's a really common thing where people will just fall on icons as a way to display information. Where we can, we try and have the text and the icon together is in as many places as we can, so that people aren't relying on one over the other. The icons are really just there to add a little bit of visual flavor for people who use the platform a lot and to help them quickly identify components on the page. To look at a couple of examples, these are some examples that we've taken from the current Aristotle Metadata Registry and an upcoming release. What we can see here is we can see what we're talking about when we're talking about minor changes for these things. So you can see these are just taken directly from the dashboard that people are probably familiar with. It's minor changes and minor angles, little visual gaps. So you can see in the notifications, they've kind of split the bell into two pieces. The the gaps between organizations that we use for the stewardship organizations have widened, and the positioning of people around work groups has changed a little bit. Likewise, here's a few more examples. Again, really dramatically, the registration authority icon we're using, which is like a university kind of like pantheon, like the Greek statues kind of thing, has changed from 4 pillars to 3 to make it a little bit more visually distinctive. The idea is these are staying relatively the same, but there are going to be some minor differences there. We wanted to flag this with our users, A, to make sure that we're on the right track, and B, so that you're aware that these changes are upcoming. So if you, our most engaged parts of the community, get questions from your own users, from people who are using your registries, you can explain what's happened and why. We really wanted to flag this up front because I think it's a really good example of where people have gotten mad at this, when they haven't enjoyed having this happen. Is Facebook is a really good example where they do change their user interface and their layout and their icons quite dramatically, and you won't get any advance warning. That's because they have millions and billions of users, so I can understand why the decision's being made for them. But because we do operate with a smaller community and with a very particular group of users around software as a service for metadata, it's easy for us to kind of communicate that out. So we've pulled a couple of examples out there. Again, to show you in a bit more detail, like the icons are again mostly the same, but little bits of changes. And as an example of why we really wanted to make this change to see why we need more of this across the platform, one of the examples that we noticed quite recently is at smaller screens, when you're viewing a stewardship organization, the icons will remove some of the text just to save space for some of the less frequently used icons. And we didn't pick up that the icon for a document, like you can upload documents into Aristotle, and the icon for a piece of metadata was actually the same. So we're going to be introducing some minor changes there. So you will see, I think we're starting to fall on, there's a little bar chart, so a little data file-ish kind of thing that we'll be using for metadata instead of the more generic, just a page with a folded corner. So that's the first bit. So we're going to be doing that soon. We are seeking feedback. So if people are concerned or if they'd like, we are going to be writing up a blog post and sharing this out as well. So you can pass this through to your own users to let them know as well. But again, it's not a dramatic change, but people will probably notice the 3 or 4 pixel differences and will have questions. So moving forward, we're next going to have a look at probably a bigger change. This is a slightly cooler change. And I say that because I was one of the people who actually helped code this when I occasionally get to code, is we're going to be looking at the metadata model visualizer. Still trying to figure out a name for this one. So if you've got a suggestion, again, the feedback session is a great time for this to happen. What I'm going to do now is I'll just bring it up and I'm going to switch my screen sharing across. So we should now be able to see that. What we're now seeing is a new tool that's going to be arriving in the metadata toolbox probably in the next 2 weeks. We're just finalizing off changes to this. And this came out of some feedback that we got from a bunch of users who are really saying, like, the content available in Aristotle is valuable. I think our metadata community understands the value of metadata, but it's challenging to explain to people who aren't familiar with all of the different interconnections between this content and want to understand, how they can use it as well. So what I've brought up here is I've brought up what we're calling the metadata map. And what it's designed to do is it's designed to display all of the interconnections within a particular Aristotle metadata registry as it's been configured. So as probably some of you are aware, we do more than just the ISO 11179 metadata management. We've also started to integrate some additional complementary metadata standards like Alex was talking about earlier, where she was talking about performance indicators. We also do classifications, data sets, and business glossaries. And all of these have, additional linkages within the system, and not all of them are configured for every user. So what we've done is we've made it so that this map will show you exactly what's available in your registry. And I'm going to do the always risky thing. And I'm just going to quickly jump to my settings. Here we go. And I'm going to go to the dashboard, and I'm going to show you what I mean by like dynamically generated from your settings. So if we go to the registry settings for this demo application, I'm going to I'll turn on the indicators. So if I turn on the indicators, I'm going to save my settings. And when I go back and refresh the page, hopefully, the bravery of the live demo, we can see now in the legend more information has come through. It's slowly building the model, and we can see there's more content available. So we've got this ability to see exactly what's in the registry or in your registry. So in your registry, you'll have certain modules configured, and it will use those to generate a dynamic map that you can use. You can pull it around. If there's too much information, you can kind of space things out. So we can kind of space it out a little bit. The other thing that you can do as well as that is also condense it a little bit as well. So what we can see here is we can see every linkage across the platform. The challenge here is that, as you can see, there's a lot of connections that are kind of duplicated. So as we were saying before, like numerators and denominators for these performance indicators, they all link between, the same kind of content. So if I click on one of these, you can see we've got a numerator that's part of a data element and an indicator, and it shrinks it down, and it's kind of challenging to see. We've got the ability up here to just reduce all of that. So it's going to hide all of those similar components. So all of the kind of child linkages between these things, so the numerators of an indicator will be hidden, the denominators will be hidden, any additional links between these will be hidden to just show the metadata content. So if I was to bring this up, it shows you, again, a little bit higher level view. And probably the other thing that you can see, and I quickly switched away so you wouldn't see the help text there, is it actually shows the help text and all of the fields available on this as well. So it's going to be really valuable for API queries, for the GraphQL queries, for general browsing and interpretation of what's available in the registry. So it'll show you pretty much everything that you could be putting in a high level way. It's also going to give you help information on what these are, what components they exist in, and so on. So that's our metadata mapper. The idea is, again, to give that high level overview of what's available in the registry from a modeling perspective, and produce it in a way that you can kind of grab screenshots and put it in your own reports and report it back to other people and say, this is what our registry is doing, this is what it's got, and this is how it's linking together and how we're generating more and more information out of it. So again, that's our kind of point 2 for the recent changes. Again, pausing it for kind of questions.
What if I want to, that screenshot, that picture, is there a way to, did you say there was a way for me to download that as a picture, or?
I think I'm going to test it now. Yeah, so you can just copy the image, or you can save the image directly. So it generates, it's an interactive image that's being presented there. You can just save that and pop it in a report.
Cool, thank you.
All right, so we are going to be making this also available to kind of jump off to browse pages. It's going to jump off to the help pages as well. So there's going to be a lot of ways to use this. It's also going to be available for anybody who's accessing the registry, because there's no information being presented out there. So probably one of the questions we might want to put out there is there a reason why we might want to hide this from the general public who might be accessing a registry, or is just displaying the meta model going to be something that we're okay having open? Because we could probably put this behind a little configuration tick box to say only make this available to people who are logged in as well. So, okay. The other last thing I'll show you is where it's going to exist. Is it's going to exist in this toolbox. So the toolbox will be available from your user menu under toolbox, and it's going to be displayed down the bottom. And again, one of the reasons why we're moving to the new icons is because, again, we didn't have a really good graph kind of connection icon. So this is the icon for the data model viewer, or the metadata map. We'll make sure that that's consistent. And again, that'll probably be available by mid-March. Cool. Okay, on to the next live demo, which I love doing. Okay, here we go. Oh, this is exciting. I love doing these. So the next one we're looking at is, again, probably a question that's come through around, oh, and now I've got to find the file, is looking at changes to the upload format that we've produced for Aristotle. So we've called it the SDDF, the Simple Data Dictionary Format. If you're interested in how to construct this, we have a lot of help at our labs page at labs.aristotlemetadata.com. We've got examples in the tool, as you can see here, and you can download examples and templates that you can use to start bulk uploading content into the registry. One of the pieces of feedback we did start to get was it was really great for uploading new content, but there was a lack of capability of connecting it to existing content as well. The solution for that is, I'm just going to switch my window again. There we go. I'm just going to switch my window quickly and bring up an example we've got here. So what we're looking at here is the ability to now start linking to content that exists within the registry. We've done some recent changes. The development team's done a really good job on this. What we're starting off with is the ability to link via the unique identifiers. So everything in Aristotle has a unique identifier, a UUID, universally unique identifier. That can be used within a registry, and also as we start to push the federation features out across registries to identify the same content no matter where it's stored. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding this to the SDDF format so that you can start linking to existing content and uploading it. When you upload content in, you can link to pre-existing definitions in the registry. So it's not quite as far as identifying things based on similar names, because there are really valid reasons to have content with the same name. There might be multiple definitions for a student, a school, or a business. Or a client is probably one of my favorite examples. So we're not going to be doing it based on name. We're going to be based on universal or a UUID. So if you know the identifier of a piece of content, you can use that within this upload format to link to existing versions. And that's going to be across all of the different components of this. So we're doing quite a lot of improvements to this in the first half of the year to look at ways to speed up the bulk import and also the bulk export of content. I think taking Excel away from people who are familiar with data is quite challenging. So rather than do that, we're going to meet them where they are. We're going to make sure that this format can be used for as much import and export as possible to help with those bulk creations of content. So while we want to get people using Aristotle as quickly as possible, this is a way for us to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that they can be, doing those bulk edits for those initial loads as easily as possible. To show what that's going to look like, I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to bring up my screen share again, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share a particular window. There we go. Okie dokie. So we're now presenting it again. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag and drop that Excel document in, and fantastic. So it's found all of the items in there, and the biggest change is here. So it's now found that there is an existing piece of content in the registry. I've used an identifier. It's found the content for me. It's also found that I've done something similar. So I've created a data dictionary that has a person's name and a person's age, and it's found the existing links as necessary to kind of bring all of those together. We've got so I think that's basically all we're going to be showing here, but the idea is we're going to again be rolling these changes out to make it easier for people to link these definitions together as they upload them in. All right, so I guess that ends the first half of the session where we were talking about upcoming changes. That's probably all of the big upcoming changes that we're looking at doing in the short term. We do have some really interesting things in the pipeline looking at multilingual content. That's especially useful when we're talking about minority audiences being able to communicate information back in other languages for users, especially when we're looking at cross-cultural information, cross-cultural metadata. We're also going to be looking at probably the next big ones are looking at alternate naming as well. So we're going to be looking at new naming conventions in the registry, but that's probably not until like later in March or early April when we start demoing those out. We will be doing a demo of the multilingual stuff very shortly because I think that's looking really good. and really ready to put out to some feedback. If there's no other questions on the upcoming changes, we'll probably jump back to some recent things that we've done, some really interesting things that we've done recently. So I'm going to jump back to the slides for a second. Actually, no, it's going to take some time to skip across. So we'll just stay here. What I'll do is I'll just jump straight into my settings. So I'm going to jump back to my dashboard. What we're next going to look at is deletion of content. So as you can see here in my recent actions, I've been doing some draft work for this demonstration. A lot of people have brought feedback to us around deletion of content. So we've designed Aristotle really to meet the kind of government requirements of making sure that the information that's held in Aristotle is safe and held and can be properly authoritatively managed. And one of the things we did was we didn't introduce deletion because of that. Based on feedback, we've now started to put that into the system in a very, very controlled way. So the changes that we've introduced for this haven't changed the functionality of Aristotle unless you start doing certain things. And that's starting to look at content creation and deletion policies. So I wouldn't be able to delete this normally, but what I can do, and this is something for all of our registry administrators to know about, and people who are helping control their registry, is to know about these settings. So in my view registry settings, we've now got a new section down the bottom that's looking at the deletion policies within the platform. So we know previously certain content couldn't be edited, certain content could only be deleted from a user's sandbox. And the questions were coming through, how can I allow a work group to delete content that hasn't been registered? How can I allow an administrator to delete any content that they want? And we've done that through this content security policies, which is basically a fancy way of saying, controlling who can delete and create certain things. So you can see here we've got the ability for organizations, stewards and administrators to edit content that's been registered. Similarly for workgroup administrators as well, so we can disable those. The other things that we're looking at is the ability for users to delete unregistered content. So here we can see I've configured this one to allow people to delete content from a workgroup and registry administrators to delete anything. So the new options that we'll now see are, and it's loading up, just going to go to my workgroup, there we go, is we've now got this little drop down, make that a little bit wider. We've now got a little drop down that allows us to delete content. Now to show you what it looks like, so we'll just click delete. It's going to give me this confirmation option. And if I go back, it's going to put it in a recycle bin, basically. So nothing ever gets deleted. It just gets hidden behind the scenes and held for a certain period of time, which is at the moment indefinitely. But we're going to add the ability to purge deleted items. But if you ever wanted to recover something, you can just come here and I'm going to recover this back into my work group. I'll show you that a little bit slower, I think. Let's go back. So we can see there's no content in my work group. If I need to recover it, I can hit the view deleted content. I can hit the actions and then I can restore it. So I've brought it back and now it's been undeleted. When we're talking about content policies, I'll show you what that means as well. So after it's been restored, we can see that it's back. And if I jumped here into my settings and said, no, nobody can delete content, no deletion, we're going to roll it back to a regular traditional Aristotle with no deletion. I've saved those content policies. And now if I refresh this page, what you will see is you'll see a little, takes a while. We're using a development server for these, so they take a little longer than you're normally used to. Oops. Let's refresh that for the cache to clear. And then probably, oh, hang on, has it worked? There we go. So that's what we're waiting for, is for the icon to go red and say, hey, you don't have permission to delete this item. So if users were expecting that action to be there, they'll get some information on why that behavior is not there. So that's good. The last thing we're going to have a look at today from a content perspective is the classifications management. So to do that, I'm just going to switch my window to an example I've prepared earlier. And that is this one. So this is an example that we've hosted publicly on Aristotle.cloud. If you're looking for some examples of the content that we put out, Aristotle.cloud is an open registry that we allow anyone to access so that they can test and trial the software. So it's not where you go. You have your own registry that's probably at aristotle.myorganization.com.au.nz. Whatever it is. So Aristotle.cloud is our one that we put out there, and it's designed again to kind of fill that community gap of people who need this platform, but can't get organization buy-in for their own just yet. So if you're looking at trialing Aristotle, this is where you go. It's also where we publish our own metadata, and I'll show you that in a second as well. So what we're looking at here is an example of a classification that we've started to migrate into Aristotle. It's the Australian and New Zealand standard classification of occupations, and it's, again, a large-scale classification used broadly across a lot of government and a lot of private sector organisations who are looking at managing or understanding the jobs that people hold. It's quite deep, it's quite broad, and it's designed in a way that allows us to capture every single component of this in a very nice non-website format. So this is designed to capture it in a really metadata kind of focused way. And it's designed so that we can capture every level and link them between things, link them back to value domains, which links them back to data elements, which links them to data sets and indicators and everything across the registry. So the value of having these classifications there really allows us to, link this authoritative information across different areas. But how do we edit it? Is the big question we get asked. So what we're looking at here is we've got two ways of editing these classifications. We can edit them using the item editor, which is the common way of accessing all editing in Aristotle. So this allows us to edit the definitions, the names, the references. So we've provided links back to the authoritative source from the ABS. So we can kind of point back to where the original examples come from. We've got our references, our names, our origins, any components or structures that it's a part of. So we can describe the entire classification using the Neuchâtel classification framework is what we're using for this. So this can all be edited and managed and saved, so we can control all of the information around this. So we can describe all of the levels and say what a major group is. The other big advantage we have with this as well is we can also edit these classification items. So what we're saying here is the ability, so not just editing the whole classification and describing ANSCO, we're now editing every single component of it. So the idea is if somebody is managing a large-scale classification, this kind of information, it's very metadata. Like people often call it reference data, but it's metadata as well. And we can start managing that through Aristotle as well. So that's there. And that was recently put in probably back in December. And I think that's the last feature we're going to look at. We've got two little things to look at. We're not going to run through any of these because they'd take hours and hours to run through. But I'll close these out. And I'm going to jump back to Aristotle.cloud. So again, a really great example because we're putting content in there. We're putting examples in there to help people find best practice information. So I'm going to put a big thank you to one of our analysts, Robin and Lauren, who've done a lot of work to kind of put this content in there to make sure that we've got examples that we can link back to so you can see and share really good examples of content. To do that, I'm just going to search for our user guides. So if you go to Aristotle.cloud and you search for user guides, you're going to see a bunch of results come up. And the one we want is the one at the top. It's the user guides folder. So within Aristotle, we can manage all sorts of information. We can manage all of our metadata, but also all the documents that link back to it as well. And the newest ones we've started to put together are business glossaries and also governance information as well. So we've started to record, showcase how to do certain activities. So I think business glossaries, controlled vocabularies, and governance decisions are the three latest ones. And you'll see we can start recording all this information. A really nifty little feature as well on ours. We're still looking at ways to implement this across our client base, but we're looking at ways to actually produce previews. So give that reload. The way that we're using this is we're doing it through Google Docs. So Google Docs has a really good API for previewing PDFs and Word documents. We're using that for our version, for the Aristotle.cloud version. We are looking at a way to introduce this for every registry that doesn't export the information. So we're looking at some microservices, I think is the term that people love to throw around. We're looking at adding a microservices framework to do this functionality within the platform rather than pushing it out to Google, because I think people would have a conniption if they knew that we're pushing data out. So we keep all of the information within your registry. So this is a feature you can't have yet, but we're working on it. But the idea is these glossaries and these user guides are designed to give you a really good information about what Aristotle's doing in your terms. So if you're familiar with business glossary or data dictionary or reference data, we've tried to put those terms up front. So if you search for our user guides and you just put in some text, you're probably going to get some examples here, and we're going to be putting those in the knowledge base as well, which is linked from our homepage because I can't remember the address right now. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up, which is in the slides, is our training videos. So just give me a second to load this one up. So recently, I think in the last month, we've started to put all of our training videos online. So these are just some pre-recorded sessions that we did that are designed, and I'm going to hope to God they don't autoplay because that would be weird for everybody. Here we go. So our training videos are, again, we're going to send the links out for this. So I'll just pop it in Slack, actually, or in the chat. So it's in the chat. All of our training videos for our first 4 modules are online, and we're going to continue to put these up as well. So we've got 2 more modules to record. We're probably going to go back and refresh all of these as well with the new features. But if you've got people in your organization who are asking for training, who need access to the training, it's publicly available through our YouTube channel, which is where this is going to go, or my part of this is going to go. It's also, we've got other demo videos as well. So there's a lot of really good content up there, so that you're not just dropped into a registry. Because I know we've got a few new users on today. We're trying to do as much as possible to make sure all of our information is available and up online. So if you go to our new website, aristotlemetadata.com, same URL, but well, I'll just show you. Metadata.com. All the way down at the bottom of the page, we've got a list of all of these links. So we've got links to our user guides, we've got links to our help portal, we've got links to our community, which I'm sure everybody's going to run away and join after this. We've got community.aristotlemetadata.com is another way that we're trying to bring people together. So if you've got questions or if you've got examples you want to show, this is a really great place to go and join in and kind of start interacting with your fellow Aristotle community members. So I think, according to my slides, I'm done. All right, cool. So that's pretty much covers everything that we were looking at covering today. So we've covered, our new icons, and again, thanks for the feedback on that. The new metadata visualizer, the new uploads, and then some of the new changes around deletion and how to access the training. What I'm going to do is pretty soon we're going to stop the recording just to kind of make sure that people can ask questions freely. But if you've got any questions, always feel free to email us, join the support channel, or that's probably it. Email us or join the support channel, or on LinkedIn. You can message us on LinkedIn, but don't message us on Facebook. Not because we don't like Facebook, but it's just we don't check it very often, because who goes to Facebook for a metadata registry? So thank you, everyone, for attending. I'm now going to open it up for Q&A for probably the next 5 or 10 minutes. If you don't have any questions or no questions come through, we'll probably stop the recording really soon. But I think we've got one from Alex. We're going to follow up on customization, and then so we'll stop there and say thank you to everybody who's going to be watching this later. I'll open it up to questions now. So the example that we had earlier was somebody was asking about how to add extra fields. There's a lot of different options within Aristotle. Probably the best one is custom fields. So if I go to my dashboard, as Alex was saying earlier, is I want to work within the frameworks that exist, but I need to add more. So what we're looking at here is the ability to add add additional fields that are specific to my registry. So we know that Aristotle's not a complete fit for everybody. We do try and encourage people to kind of follow the international standards that exist, and we use those quite heavily, because having that harmonization across registries is really valuable when we do start to see sharing across registries. But we know that there are examples where it's not a perfect fit. It's not a 100% fit. That's where these custom fields become valuable. What they are is they're the ability for each registry, so it's per whole registry, not stewardship organizations or work groups, but each registry can start adding the fields that they see are necessary. And it's a way for us to kind of basically prototype changes to the standard, because we do communicate back as well. These are under the administrator tools under manage custom fields. So if I go here under manage custom fields, it gives us a list of every different type of metadata in the system. And this is only for registry administrators, so don't worry about people changing things too much. This is for everything in the system, and we can add additional fields here. So for example, if I was to edit an indicator, I can see I haven't got any custom fields on there. It's just loading up. Here we go. So I can add a new custom field. So Alex, what was the example you were using earlier?
The risk-adjusted methodology, or the risk adjustment.
Cool, risk adjustment. I can type that. What we can do is we can start adding these in. So if I wanted to add a risk adjustment field within a registry, I can dictate what type it is. So I can say, it sounds like risk adjustment methodology. I'm going to put that all in. Sounds like a really like a long piece of text. So we've added quite a few options here. So we can see we can add it as a number, a short piece of text, so a really small text field, a really big piece of text, so a rich text field with the ability to make things bold and add hyperlinks, a date or a choice, which is a list of enumerated options. So if you wanted somebody to have to pick from a list of options, you can add that in, and you can add the choices in down here. So we're going to just stick with a rich text field, and I can say, so the system name is what we use when it's exported through the API. So if somebody wanted to see it in the API, we can give it a name. We can give that there. I'll skip the help text, and I'll skip the longer help text, which both show up in the editor. I can say that this is a field for let's say just as a hypothetical, just for authenticated users. So I can actually control who can see this field. So this can be shown only to administrators if it's really sensitive information. We can show it just to people within a particular work group. We can show it to anybody who has an account on your particular registry, or we can make it public so that anybody who can visit the registry, if it was a public portal, a public metadata portal, would be able to see it. So I'm going to save it as authenticated, and I'm going to set it as active. So the idea is if you cease to use this field, you can actually deactivate it so people can no longer change it or no longer add it to new metadata, or you can hide it. So if you wanted to remove it entirely and pretend that you never had it at all, we can hide it as well. So if we need to bring it back, we can. So we'll leave this one as active and visible. And I'm going to submit those changes, and up top, it's going to tell me everything has been saved. And what that does is that means that if I go to create some content, so I'll go to my little plus icon, I'll click see all, it's going to load, and if I create an indicator, so I'll load an indicator, and I'll call it number of attendees. We keep track of how many people attend these. It's a really good metric to know how big our community is growing. So we do actually kind of keep a little track of these. So I've added in the name of my number of attendees. And if I go to this slots tab, we've picked that because it's from the ISO standard. I don't know why they called it slots, but we now have this ability to, what we would see here, Alex, is you'd see that under the slots tab, we'd have that new field. So that new field would show a rich text field with all of the bolding options, and it would also show the name and all of the custom help. So if we wanted to add in a specific risk methodology kind of field, we can do that through there. So that's the option there. So I'm going to leave that spin.
Thank you very much.
It's okay. Are there any other questions? Here we go. It's finally loaded. So if I go slots, we can see, there we go, risk adjustment methodology. And then if I had help, it would show me the help text there as well. So that's how we can add, things that sit outside the standards that we've used in Aristotle. I guess we'll leave it there. So thank you everyone for attending.